I get the EA gets a rough name sometimes in the CPA world because, you only have an EA. Well, you, I only have an EA.
I don't think it's because we have a passion for tax. I think we have a passion to help people, and tax is something that everyone has to face. Death and taxes, it's a guarantee somebody's going to have to deal with it.
Welcome to Accounting High.
Introducing the star of our show.
The EA team.
We're gonna have a problem here.
Oh, students, you're in for a treat today. I've got with me the EA team. It's like the A team, but it's the EAs. We're going to dive deep into EAs today. You're going to hear a lot about why we all became EAs, a little bit more about EAs, and we're going to also premiere a new OKR track for our students today. I don't know if we're going to call this another student assembly, maybe, faculty lounge. I would say assembly since we're going to premiere a song. We're going to get hype about that too. I got with me an OG EA here. Students, you may have heard him back in our Sons of CPAs days, episode 66. I got with me Adam Markowitz, EA, who was also on the CPA EA debate, because we also have debate teams here at Accounting High, which you can go back and check that one out too. We'll put a link in the notes. CPAs versus EAs, but here we're going to just talk about EAs. This is Adam Markowitz. What's up, homie?
Always glad to be back here with you, Scott. Happy to be part of what will inevitably be one of the more unhinged episodes you have of Accounting High today.
We'll try to keep it clean here because we also got another savior of EAs here, a ray of hope for the future of EAs. He and I both graduated the same year in high school. We're back at Accounting High. I still say he's a young one in this space because I'm a young one in this space. Matthew Cordes, EA. Did I say it right? Is it Cordis?
Cordis. You got it.
Cordis. All right. I've heard Cordes before. Cordes. Sabrina Paris. You came highly recommended for Sabrina. She mentioned you, and I'm pretty sure she said it right when she had mentioned you. I premiered this song for her a couple weeks ago. A little bit of background for our students. I'm going to tell everybody why we're here today. So, I was supposed to have my final performance of 2024. OKR lined up. North Carolina CPA Society was throwing on a convention for EAs. And I had a couple months to work on this song. I was going to premiere it, and then Sabrina and I were going to do a panel. And we had been working on our panel, and I had just finished the song, and I played it for her, and we were really excited. She was excited about it. It was going to land well with all the EAs. I was expecting a big room full of EAs to premiere this to and perform it. And it got canceled. So the conference got canceled. Not enough people signed up. And now we have a fresh new track to premiere to my EA team and our students here at Accounting High. Why EAs and why was this anything special? Well, students, as you may know, I am an EA. I will not be an EA in about 4 months. I think the service said I have until 4/15 until it lapses. I went to renew it, guys. I filled out the form. I forgot the form number. Filled out the form, paid for it. I thought I had all my CPE. I got an email back from them and said I had 0 CE. Notice I said CPE. I've been traveling to a lot of accounting conferences. I've been an EA since 2012, and I didn't realize there was a difference between CPE and CE. So we're going to talk about that today, too. Although I don't think I need it anymore for my firm. We will talk about the years that it did serve me, the 12 years plus that it served me well in my practice, and that how it's serving both of you guys and how it's maybe serving many of our students out there, because nobody talks about the EA. Nobody respects the EA. There's a ton of EAs on Tax Twitter and on LinkedIn. Let's introduce Matthew for the first time on Accounting High here. Dear friend of mine, I've known you for a couple years. Matthew, you became an EA in 2008. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. You also started your own firm too, but let's just get a little bit of brief background on how and why you became an EA in the first place. Is that what that was only, if I do my math, that was 6 years after high school, right? So
Right.
It's not like you went straight into the EA ready out of high school. Let's hear a little bit of the backstory.
Sure, yeah. finishing up in college, not sure what I wanted to do, and I got hired in at a local CPA firm. The CPA that was the principal partner, it was like, hey, I want to bring you in, and I want you to basically be my retirement plan and buy me out. And so we started that talk. We got talking about the CPA, which would have made me go further education, get that 150 hours, all that conversation. And he goes, here's the real crux of the matter, if you will. You don't need the CPA license to do what we do at this firm. That firm had one client that had an annual review, and that was it. That was the only client that had any need for a state issued CPA license product to give. So for that firm, it wasn't worth the process of getting that CPA license. So he recommended, and I had never heard of Enrolled Agent. I'd never heard of what an EA was. He recommended, why don't you just go down this route? And so that's what I started to pursue.
Sounds very similar to my story. Small local place. I didn't know what an EA was. As we said on our previous episode, Adam thought it was executive assistant. I had heard that thrown around. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I got the same explanation. He was an EA, and we were doing write-up and basic tax, like basic bookkeeping for the tax return. These weren't any publicly traded companies. These weren't any public-facing audited financials or anything. We were just doing the books for a tax return. And EA seemed like a path that was less of a burden than getting the CPA, let's say. At that point in my career, I thought the EA was it was fun to study for because it was relevant. Adam, talk to me about getting your EA too. Why the EA? I know you briefly shared it in our CPA versus EA, but why don't you share it again?
Yeah. So when I started in the accounting world, I did so without having taken a single class in my life. And to this day, I still haven't taken a single class in my life in business, finance, accounting, none of it. I studied music and history. So I didn't really have any choice in the matter. It was always going to be, if I was going to get licensed, I was going to become an enrolled agent. And similar to you guys, there's nothing that we do that requires a CPA. We don't do any attestation work or anything like that. And the other part of it that I became almost more proud of as time, went on is that what we do as EAs, we do tax. That's what we do. We don't do any of the other stuff, or we don't specialize in any of the other stuff. Whereas, I tell people CPAs can be very generalists. A lot of what they have to study and a lot of their continuing ed and a lot of what they have to pass on the test has absolutely nothing to do with income tax. So, I have somebody now on my team, Christina, who is eligible to sit for the CPA. She's got the 150 hours and she's working on her EA right now. And the reason she's working on her EA is because she wants to do tax. And, what I tell people is if you're looking for somebody to just do taxes for you, you should be looking for an EA. It's not that CPAs obviously can't do that stuff. It's that this is what we do as enrolled agents. And in a way, we're kind of specialists from that standpoint.
Yeah. So we all do taxes. We all have done taxes. Do we have a passion for taxes? Is that why we're EAs, or we're EAs because it makes us more credible? Matthew, I'll let you take this one.
I don't think it's because we have a passion for tax. I think we have a passion to help people, and tax is something that everyone has to face. Death and taxes, it's a guarantee. Somebody's going to have to deal with it. I like to help people, and tax is one of the most frustrating things to a lot of people. I just had a conversation with my own mother-in-law about paying her fourth quarter estimated tax payment, and she was so frustrated trying to pay it. And she almost was to the point of tears trying to make this payment because she just doesn't understand. It's overwhelming, and it's overwhelming to a lot of people. And so we can step into that role for whatever way or reason we are wired to understand it, to grasp it, and then we can translate what we understand and know. We can translate that really well into helping people. And so that's the way I have looked at it and approach it that way.
It's an emotionally charged event when we talk about money and taxes, and a lot of people get blocked up and they just don't do anything. How many times has somebody come to you, Adam, and they hadn't filed taxes for years, They're afraid of opening the IRS notices. How many times has somebody come to you, to your off or whatever, seen you, and they have unopened letters from the IRS that they're afraid to even open?
Yeah, and allow them to say shit like, we changed your address. Yeah. Still looks just as
Yeah,
scary
sometimes
sitting in the
it's nothing
mailbox.
to be scary about.
But, you know, no, absolutely. People are terrified of the IRS, and I can't say I blame them, but I also, knowing what we know in this world, that I like what Matt said about, the fact that we help people, because listen, we're all EAs, we do taxes for a living. There ain't a human being on the planet who wakes up every day and says, I cannot wait to fill out my damn tax return today. And that includes us, right? I'm sure you guys are the same way. Like, my tax return either gets done in January or it gets done in September, and there's nothing in the middle because I don't want to deal with it. So nobody, including the ones of us who do this, wake up and go, we love doing taxes. We like helping people. What we love to do is help people navigate all those waters around taxes and tax law changes and filling out forms and dealing with stupid states who have their own sets of rules and all those things. And, like Matt said, we are kind of uniquely qualified to do that. And it's from, years of hard work and studying it, just like anybody who's got any other license or specialty or degree or whatever the case is. And that's the part that we all like. We like the process. We hate sitting here filling out damn tax forms. We can't wait for AI to take our jobs from that standpoint.
How about representation? How about dealing with the IRS? We're uniquely qualified to be able to do that too. Who can speak on that? Who's got a lot of representation experience?
I don't do a ton of it. I mean, I'll deal with all the stuff that I got to deal with when I got to call PPS or whatever the case is. But yeah,
don't you have to call the IRS sometimes for clients? Isn't that what we do as EAs?
Yeah, when we have to. When it's easy, I let the clients deal with it. Like if they're trying to get a FTA or something like that, I let them deal with it. I don't, they're going to pay me way more to deal with it than they're going to just do it on their own. I always like, when I call PPS and I deal with somebody on the other end, the IRS, who recognizes that we know what we're talking about and they don't give us the bullshit and they just get straight to the answers and they respect that. And, quite honestly, it's nice to have that sometimes. I get it. The EA gets a rough name sometimes in the CPA world because, you only have an EA. Well, you, I only have an EA. But we don't get that from the IRS in any way, shape, or form.
No, the IRS tends to lean toward that. They appreciate that or they like it and they like working with us. Matthew, you got any experience with that?
I mean, my main experience is similar to that, responding to notices. That is the point of the enrolled agent license, though, is representation. It is the ability to be an advocate for our clients to the IRS. I mean, that was the entire history of the reason why this license exists. And the purpose of the license is to be a representative for the taxpayer. I mean, my experience is very similar to Adam's probably. We get a POA or a TIA, and we kind of we can call PPS and try and get maybe some penalties abated, try and figure out why in the world they got this notice that doesn't make any sense, whatever the case may be. But as far as like audits and things like that, I've had very little experience with it because even over the last 15 plus years, because we just haven't seen that many audits. But so that's our goal, is to represent and be that advocate at go-between to try and make sense of this convoluted tax world, and especially with the current IRS and the state of the IRS.
For sure, yeah. Adam, you say knock on wood. Have you seen many audits yourself?
3 in my entire career.
Really?
Income tax
Are
audits.
they
Yeah,
IRS?
3.
Were they IRS level?
No. 3 IRS audits. Now,
Yeah.
we talk
I
about
think
in
I'm-
a state different, but
I might have the same, maybe 2 or 3 big ones that we've dealt with. A ton of state level audits, local audits. We deal with a lot of those: unemployment, sales tax, property tax, all the state local ones. IRS, I would say maybe 3 big ones in my time as an EA. It takes the emotion out of it, though. When we work with the service or the state levels, it's not as emotional for us. We're not tied. This isn't our baby. This isn't our business, or this isn't our life. And they're not questioning our livelihood. I've seen when clients come to us, they are very emotional about the situation, or they've had an emotional encounter already with an agent or somebody, and they can't deal with it or they can't continue on. Have you guys dealt with that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of what tax professionals in general, not just EAs, but tax professionals in general do for people, because it's very easy for us to step back and say, okay, this is what your situation is. It is very difficult when it's your tax return, you're the client, and you don't know any better to understand what's going on. So, okay, you owe $5,000 this year to the IRS. Well, it's really easy when you're the one who owes the $5,000 to think the world is coming to an end and everyone hates you, and depending upon who's in office and what your political persuasion is, that it must be the guy in the White House's fault that you owe all this money. And it's much easier for us to step back and to kind of say, okay, there's a logical reason for this. Here, let me explain it to you. And at least with my experience with the clients that I've had with that, is they take a lot of solace in knowing that we're the calming influence, more or less, for them when things like this happen.
Calming influence, yeah. We can keep things calm too, at least from our perspective, because we've seen the longer view of it. We've dealt with situations like this before, so we can calm them down first and then handle the situation and get paid for it too. What's your longest hold time? The IRS.
I've let it go in the background for maybe 3 hours at most. But at some point I just got, you know what? I can't sit on hold like this. I will say PPS in the last couple months, I've actually gotten right through. And I don't know if that's your experience, Adam, but I don't know if they just got a whole bunch of call
Wait, what's
reps.
PPS?
Practitioner Priority Service.
Aha. Okay. Explain to our students if they don't know what's
Sure.
practitioner priority service.
Yeah, there is a special phone number with the IRS specifically for practitioners to call that's supposed to help us avoid the 829-1040, the main IRS line. You know, this is specifically for practitioners to, I don't want to say skip ahead of the line, but it kind of narrows it down. Look, they know they're going to talk to a practitioner that's going to call regarding a client issue.
Have you dealt with that, Adam?
Enough times. I don't ever sat on hold for 3 hours, because I don't know. Nowadays it's 2 hours and they disconnect you or something like that. Now, I've done that several times in a row before. I had one of my biggest clients had a situation back in 2021. For anybody who's listening to this, who was practicing back then, you remember that it took an act of Congress just to get a hold of somebody at the IRS, and this was just something I don't remember what the whole situation was. We had to get this thing resolved. And I called them up right at 7 in the morning, and I didn't get through to anybody until probably about 2 in the afternoon, and that was after getting disconnected a couple times. But I promised my client I'd keep trying. Quite frankly, he was paying me for it. So I'll take your money to sit on hold. That's okay. I can deal with the same 16 bars of IRS music for hours on it.
That music was sampled in the other
Yep.
anthem I did, the tax accountant's anthem. I pulled up an image here for our students. For those that are listening, you can search Roadmap, Taxpayer Advocate Roadmap. I saw this posted today. Shout out to Dancing Nancy McClellan. She posted this and made some comments on it. This is outrageous. This is the crazy stuff that goes on in the IRS. This looks like the subway map for New York City, or maybe a more complex city than New York. This is the roadmap of everything that goes on in the IRS. Either one of you care to take this or explain what's going on here? Has either of you seen this before?
I've seen it in passing.
I've not seen this before. This is new to me, and the first thing when you put this up, I mean, I knew what it was when you put it up, because I can understand some of this shit. But I wanted to say, Scott, what the are you putting this up here for? This is the convoluted that we have to deal with on a daily basis, with the IRS. And to give the good people there all the credit in the world who worked and pick up the phones, and the agents who were trying to do, because they're trying to work within this. We just have to work on this stuff when things go wrong. They have to do this every single day of their lives.
This is the reason why I've been disconnected from so many calls, not on the initial call, but it's on the transfer. So you call maybe PPS and you're trying to deal with this problem, and they say, well, we don't fix that problem. I need to get you to this department, which is another one of these colors on your map here, and in the transfer, I get disconnected all the time.
All the time. So there is 6 different colors on this map, which represents each of the different, I guess, departments that they are transferring between. It really does. I'm not exaggerating. It looks like a subway terminal. And this is the system that we have to navigate in order to help and represent clients. Somebody comes to you with an IRS letter. It could come from any of these locations. We've been dealing with it for a while. It's getting, do we say it's getting better in the horizon, or does it just get worse progressively?
Ah! Oh, well. Talk to us in a few months.
I will say I do think there are glimmers of hope. The IRS Tax Pro account online, some things that are maybe modernizing, should have been done a decade ago, but there are some things that are hopefully getting better. You know, you can submit power of attorney or TIA requests through your Tax Pro account. They get done fairly rapidly, but we are getting a little bit past the faxing something in and hope that it gets somewhere. Even those things are still few and far between. Only certain forms can be submitted that way. The rest of it, you either fax it in or you mail it in and hope that it makes it off the delivery truck into the hands of a human being. So they are getting a little bit better. I think if it would quit being a political football and actually allow them to use funding to actually better their service, then it would go that way.
Yeah. Just to name off all the stations that they deal with. So there's the tax return prep, and then there's tax return processing, 2 totally different places. And then there's exam screening station. Then there's, and I don't know if that's exam like they're reviewing returns or if that's actually the
It's an examination, so it's an audit.
I was going to say exam. It's not the EA exam. Then there's litigation, appeals, and then there's a whole other collections department. That's like the heartbeat of the IRS in the middle. That's the red one.
And what they
Everybody's
don't
not
list there is the fact that there's like 14 service centers for each of these things that are all throughout the country.
all throughout the country. So you're dealing with special service centers for special things, for different things you're dealing with. Adam, I know you deal with S-Corp stuff a lot. Just today you posted something about an S-Corp delayed election or acceptance. They didn't accept 1 year, but they accepted the other year. Talk to me about this, your experience with S-Corps.
I mean, there's such stupid that the IRS could fix if they wanted to. 2553 is the form that you become an S-Corp on. It should be one box check on the 1120S. Just submit it with the 1120S and you're an S-Corp. But no, we have to go to the trouble of faxing in a form or mailing a form that we're hoping some human being gets it, deals with it, puts the right dates on it, deals with the RevProcs when because many S-Corps are filed under RevProc 2013-30, which is basically the late election. So You're giving us the ability to do this late, but then if we don't put it in the spot that some human being decides that they want to deal with it on, they send it back to us, or they just approve you for the wrong year. And years later, we're getting notices that like this one that I just had is a notice that somebody filed a 2553 in 2019, or for 2019 rather, and we've been filing as an S-Corp ever since, and they just got a notice about it just before Christmas. And it's like 2019's tax year we're talking about now. And it's like the stupidest thing about this, and I said this to my client, IRS has a damn statute of limitations to do anything about it anyway. You're not committing fraud. You didn't do anything wrong. You gave them all the forms, so they can't even do anything to you about this. So it's asinine, the waste of resources that we still have to, both on our end and the IRS's end, that something as simple as a 2553 isn't just a checkbox. Like literally should just be a damn checkbox that even the IRS supercomputer should be able to figure out.
And this is just one of hundreds of things that you're dealing with, right? Like you just get this one thing, and now this interrupts your day when you should be preparing 1099s, right?
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for the reminder, Scott.
This is January, students. We're busy, and these guys are taking their time to record a special on EAs. Thank you both again. So Matthew, how about your experience? S-Corps in general.
S-Corps in general. Similar to that is the 2020, That COVID years really messed up a lot of S Corp. Those 2553s, I don't know where they went. I don't
Scruffy,
know
yeah.
if I think they burned them. I think they destroyed them, honestly. I had a handful of at least 2 or 3 that the IRS would
Burned
never
them in the L.A. fires.
had to. No.
It was the L.A. Service Center that got burned down.
You know, prior to, I've been in practice for a long time, and I never had these problems with S Corps until about that same time period. 2020 was the trigger year where they just disappeared, the 2553s. We would e-file the extension, and that would get accepted, but then we would try to e-file the 1120S, and that would get rejected, saying you got the wrong tax type. We'd have to paper file that with a copy of the 2553 attached and a letter, and
Yep.
they still wouldn't respond to that. And so for years, it's the same thing over and over again. You'd try and be on hold for hours trying to get a hold of somebody to solve the problem. And it was just a very frustrating situation. I am pro checkbox on the 1120S. Just make an election. And that is not as far as I know, that's not a statute that has to be fixed by Congress. That's completely the IRS that they could just change the form or include it with the filing of the 1120S and be done.
We used to find out every year when we would file extensions which clients were not accepted as S Corps and which ones weren't. We had a little trick, or we had a way of getting the extension through for all of those that hadn't been accepted yet. We could make there was a checkbox somewhere that said first year. I forgot what we would
First
do,
year,
and it was
yep.
and we would check that box, and then the extension would go through, and then we'd find out letters later. You filed this return. You need to file an 1120, not 1120S. We deal with this a lot. And it sounds like we all have our workarounds to get it done. And eventually it all gets handled years and years later. I don't understand, in some cases, why this hasn't been fixed. Is it a burden for the IRS? Yes. Burden for us? Yes. For the clients, too. Who's going to run for Congress and sort this stuff out? Adam?
Not it.
I love my wife and kids too much.
Adam, you originally went to school for music and journalism or art and then turned over to something that probably is going to be more stable, is going to make some more money. Is that right?
That's what I keep getting told. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I was doing well in sports writing once upon a time, but no, this is obviously a lot better.
sports gambling too, right?
That too, yeah. Did that for a long time in my life.
Yeah. So I guess I'm reverting backwards. I did all this, and now I'm going into the music because we're gonna premiere the newest premiere, OKR's newest track. This is a take on Nirvana. If you don't know already, "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is smells like EA's, and I'm gonna get us started.
Collections come from IRS. It's overdue. You're feeling stressed. Cease notice from the self-employed. You called on hold and so annoyed. On hold, on hold, on hold, hell no. On hold, on hold, on hold, hell no. On hold, on hold, on hold, hell no. On hold, on hold, on hold. Different lifestyle, it's outrageous. Here we are now, enrolled agents. Resolution, set up payments. Here we are now, enrolled agents. I'm a tax pro, minimizer, down to zero. I'm your hero, EA. I practiced before the IRS and authorized to represent the feds approved enrolled agent, not
That's awesome, man.
Damn, you're talented.
I loved it.
Yeah, that would have been fun to perform somewhere with a bunch of EAs. I believe if there is another tax retreat, I believe we can do a video for it. So stay tuned. The next tax retreat. So let's talk about paring some things down. So Matthew, you originally got started in this. You got your EA 4 years before I did, as I said. Adam, what year did you get your EA?
2017.
2017. But Matthew, almost 10 years prior, you started your own practice and bought a building all in your local town, EA. Over 10 years later, you sold both, and have joined a new team, still doing the same thing, still in EA. It's not like you're doing anything different. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. Tell our students, why climb that mountain or climb that hill? Did you feel like you got to the top of the hill that you were climbing?
Not exact. I guess I got to the top of the hill that was available. I didn't just start a firm. I bought a firm, an existing firm. So it had small town, local clients. I would call it a very old school traditional firm with the low fee structure, with nobody wanted the technological advances. You know, they definitely didn't want some remote guy. They didn't like portals. Like, we're talking old school. They want paper documents, all those kind of things. And I'm trying to make some advances and technological advances. I tried to start shaping my firm to where I wanted it to be. Met a lot of headwinds, and as COVID did not help, that whole 2020 to 2022 timeframe with ERC and all that stuff, you know, that was an added burden to it. Personal life, my wife and I had been wanting children for a very long time, and for whatever reason, wasn't happening. And 15 years into our marriage, finally, our son makes his arrival. And then very shortly after that, our daughter. And very soon, this coming March, baby number 3 is coming. So we're talking about major life changes on the personal side. Then all these headwinds on the firm side that I'm trying to take this firm in a direction that the clients themselves don't want to go. You know, I'm listening to stats. I'm listening to you and all the people you have on your podcast, and I'm learning all these things about how to make a firm the way I want it to be. And I'm just looking at the landscape going, I don't know that I can get this without a lot of pain, which is possible, right? You can do that with your firm if you're willing to go through that. I literally looked at my wife on April 16th this past year, and she looked at me and just said, "You can't do this again," referring to a crazy busy tax season. And it was the next day or so that Andrea McDonald posted on Twitter that she was looking for a tax professional to join her firm. And her little tagline at the end was, or maybe you're a solo firm owner that is tired of the rat race. And that was like a light bulb moment. I never considered maybe selling my firm, getting out of the firm ownership aspect, and joining up with someone else. And so, trying to make this a long story short, there was an EA, actually former IRS collection agent in our area that I had already referred some work to, that she was getting her start. And I approached her and said, "Hey, I've already referred some work to you. Would you be interested in buying my firm out?" I had 3 employees. I said, "If this only works if you keep the employees." I had a building that the firm rented as a space. I said, "I really want to keep this downtown in our small town of 6,000 people. You know, it's a staple business downtown. I need that to stay there. Would you be willing to do that?" All those things lined up. She was like, "Yes, let's do it." It accelerated her timeline a little bit, but now she's got a full firm and she can do with it as she pleases. I have this tax preparer job with Steadfast Bookkeeping, and Andrea and Jeremy Wells, who you had on with your EA debate. I am doing the same thing, but I'm doing a lot less. And what I'm not doing is the firm running, right?
Yeah.
I'm not making decisions on payroll. I'm not making decisions on pricing. I'm not making marketing decisions. I'm not making decisions on whether to accept a client on this discovery call or any of those administrative type partner level decisions I'm not making. I'm simply, can I do this tax projection for this client? What are some tax advice that we should give this client? Preparing the tax returns, doing some of the actual just tax work, contacting the IRS on behalf of clients. Basically, the simple enrolled agent job that's what I'm doing. And I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that. It's kind of making me fall back in love with the work a little bit and what I got into this to do. I didn't get into this to do the whole business running thing. Does that say that I wouldn't do it again? No, I think I would have a way better understanding of how I would start again. It's opened my eyes to how I could start it again. But for me and my family and the things that we're doing right now, this makes a whole lot more sense. It's worked out very well. I hope I'm an asset to Andrea and Jeremy and the team. And I know this is the right thing for us right now.
Yeah, that's wild. Again, you and I both graduated high school 2002. We ran our firms for about 15 years until we exited, in a sense. I exited in a different way. I haven't sold it. I just kind of stepped aside so I don't have to deal with a lot of that stuff anymore. You had texted me last year when we had Andrea on, scaling $1 million firm, and she hadn't made any of these moves yet. This was before she was actually, before she made that post, she was talking about she was going to be looking for somebody, and she discussed this, and you were the perfect fit. You were exactly what she was looking for, and you texted me and you asked me, you think that she would be a good person to work with, or I forgot what you had said. So it turned out to be a match. Adam, there's something you're doing too at your firm that I want to talk about.
I'm the asshole going the other direction, Nick.
You're not the asshole going another direction. You're younger than us too, right? What year did you graduate high
I'm
school?
only a year younger than you guys.
You are the same age, but your EA
This is
started later.
This is my 18th tax season, Scott. I've been around for a
18th?
while. This is my
Okay.
18th tax season.
What am I confusing about? You just got your EA late then.
Yeah.
You did all this before the EA. All right.
Yep.
So you've been at this for a little while too, but you just rebranded your firm. So like you just said, you went in the exact opposite direction and you went more all in. When we first had you on the show, we were debating Magic Markowitz, or what was the other name that we had for your firm?
Oh, God, man, I
something
forget.
Tax. Oh, no. License to
Vitowitz,
tax.
right? That's
Yeah,
it.
Yep.
Vitowitz, yeah.
Vitowitz and license to tax. You did not go with any of those.
Did
you
not.
went with Luminary. You're doing some fascinating things there at your firm, but you're more all in on let's get this to grow. And not only that, but you're growing your team too, and you're enabling them. And you've been very out loud about that online, about your team outings and about the direction the team's going in. Care to elaborate a little bit on the direction you're going with the firm?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. Let me kind of start with one of the things that Matt was saying about the pain of kind of breaking it down and starting it over again. And that's what I did. I mean, I basically took a $350,000 business and I told everybody, I'm here for you, but we're doing this my way now. And it went over with some people just fine. It went over great with some people, and there were some people that it didn't work for, and that was totally fine. But yeah, there's a lot of pain. And I'll tell you, this is our third tax, this is really our third tax season. It's
As
a
Luminary?
32-year-old business. Yeah, this is our third tax season as Luminary. And there's still a lot of things that I'm like, man, we need to do this better, and we need to be using technology more for this. And I wish I had more people on my team. I wish I had grown in a different, not necessarily a different order, but maybe in just a different manner than I did. I feel like I'm constantly one person short of what I need constantly. Back on April 10th of 2023, that first tax season where we were Luminary, we had some of your students here, may know this stories, have said this and told this in a lot of places. On April 10th, 2023, I was sitting with Joe Vaughn, our manager, and we're just getting ready to get the last, 50, 75, whatever returns is out the door before April 15th. And one of the returns we were working on that night was for her brother and for her future sister-in-law. And they work at a place called the Florida Institute for Community Inclusion. And it is a nonprofit center that basically is an adult day program for, or young adult day program for people who have cognitive disabilities. They basically take these young adults from falling out of the high school system to getting them to whatever is next in their life. And that could be anything from functions of daily living to getting into a career. At the same time, Christina, our bookkeeper, the one who's becoming an EA as we speak here, her sister-in-law is neurodivergent as well. And I have a neighbor across the street who now is a senior in high school who reminds me of me, and he has Asperger's. And when you figure how hard it is to hire an accountant right now, how few people are getting the license and getting the degrees to be able to do this, and then you look at specifically people, we'll just take autism because I know the stats. Anywhere between 80 and 90% of people with autism are either unemployed or underemployed. And as you start looking at this and going, well, the general autistic mind that I'm doing in air quotes for those of you just listening to this, knowing there's no such thing. Generally speaking, there's a reason why the puzzle piece became a symbol of autism. And when you look at everything that we do, we're in a sum-zero game. Every single thing, if it's on the left side of the ledger, it's got to be on the right side of the ledger. If we've got a tax document for it, it's got to end up in one of how many ever spots on a tax return. And I looked at Giovanna on April 10th, 2023 and said, why are we not doing this? And that was the start of what's become our neurodivergent career program. And now a third of our staff is, well, they both happen to be autistic, but they're neurodivergent. And I'm hoping by this time next year that I've more than doubled the amount of people that we have that are neurodivergent on our team, because I think they can, number one, bring some awesome skills to the table. But number two, it's also giving them opportunities that frankly don't exist, especially not down in my neck of the woods. In my neck of the woods, if you are a quote unquote special needs person, you may as well just be with the state. You're not going to get an opportunity, too many places. It's not a very progressive place from that standpoint. So, the fact that we're doing this, and we've been to events for, nonprofits, organizations that help families with special needs that are touched by special needs, and everywhere we go, they look and these people are just going, what is this tax firm doing here? Like, what do taxes have to do with this? Until I tell them a third of my staff is autistic. And this is where we're trying to grow. And I'm a firm believer that if I'm right about this, that I could take on every H&R Block in America. I could just take everybody on, just say, I've got a model that works. And by the way, we're pretty damn good at what we do, because they're only going to learn how to do tax one way. They're only going to learn how to do accounting the Luminary way of doing things. And if we can replicate that over and over and over again, why can't this logo end up being a household logo that everybody knows the same way the green block with the white letters or Jackson Hewitt's logo or whatever the case is? I'm ready to go. I turned 40 this year, and I think I've got a good 15 years of runway with this in front of me. And why can't I become a $40 million business? Why can't I do that? And this is where we're starting. And I'm super excited I've always been accused of kind of going, the salmon going the wrong direction upstream. Mm-hmm. But I'm super excited about the challenges that we have in front of us here, because I think we have just a boatload of opportunities in front of us.
It's bold, dude. Everything that you do is a bold move, and it's a big statement, and it's inspiring, and it's a ray of hope. That's what Luminary is. Luminary, you're shining the light and a ray of hope for this profession, because you're solving problems that exist. These are real problems. People have a hard time hiring. And what you did, you found a demographic that can be really good. I think I have a tinge of Asperger's. I'm not kidding. There's not even a joke. I think that, and I'm a very good accountant, and I'm very good at those, like, organization and keeping things in order and doing the right thing and following the instructions to detail, all of those things. So I think you're onto something there, and I'm sure you have found this, that shining that light on somebody that's overlooked and finding the gifts that they have that they can give to the world and giving them an opportunity. There's a coffee shop near me called Esteemed Coffee, and they do the same thing. Everybody that's working in there is neurodivergent. It's better than saying disability, but because they're not disabled. They still can thrive and flourish. They're just in an environment where they can succeed. And I'm sure you have a lot more patience with them in some other areas, like emotionally or dealing with that. Do you care to share of any experiences that you've had where you've had to express that emotional resilience that maybe you didn't have when you're dealing with another employee or with a client?
Man, I wish I had Giovanna on right now to talk about all this stuff, because she deals with this every single day, and she loves doing it because it's a chance for her to be a leader of young men and women who again, wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise. And Scott, there's a coffee shop up in your neck of the woods too called Biddy and Bowes. And Biddy and Bowes is kind of what we have more or less modeled off of. There's also a book behind me called The Power of Potential. And there's a guy down in South Florida who's got a car wash called Rising Tide. Almost 90% of his staff is neurodivergent. So, when you talk about dealing with, air quoted challenges of dealing with people who are neurodivergent, when you build up a degree of patience for the things that I'd say problems, but the differences that we all have, neurodivergent, neurotypical, and the likes. I have one young man that works for me who always thinks he's got the right answer because he's maybe the most brilliant person I'd ever come across in my life. He's a 23-year-old computer engineering student at UCF. He always thinks he's got the next answer. He always thinks he's figured out the next step. He's not right a lot of the time because his mind hasn't been wired yet for this in the right way. But I never want to take that away from him.
Yeah.
And what I've explained to my team is if we can harness that and learn to love that, man, the things we're going to be able to unlock are going to be awesome.
Wow, that's awesome. Like that you recognize that too. And instead of getting frustrated with the fact that he might be interrupting or coming up with like an idea and it just falls flat, instead of getting frustrated by that, you see the gift in it and the beauty in it. This has been great. You guys are awesome speakers in the community. You're very loud out there. Adam, you probably have over 20,000 followers on Twitter now. Matthew, you're just about to hit 10,000 if you haven't already. That's a big milestone. Both very active, both EAs, two of my favorite EAs in the space. Thank you. This has been the EA team here at Accounting High. This has been your Smells Like EA's session. Thanks, guys, for joining me.
Thanks, Scotty.
Always a pleasure.
Peace out, students.